When I started my training, I was surprised by my coach. Not by what she knew or the techniques she used, by how she spoke to me. She was so gentle, in a way that stopped me, like she actually meant it, like she believed I deserved to be spoken to that way. And I realized sitting there that I wasn't used to it from others and certainly not myself. Because if I'm honest, I had been hard on myself my entire life, constantly. That inner voice that critiques before you even finish the thought. That one that keeps score, that says you should have known better before you even had a chance to catch your breath. I thought that voice was keeping me accountable, keeping me sharp, keeping me from getting too comfortable. What I did not realize, it was also exhausting me. There's a difference between high standards and harshness, and I had confused the two for a very long time. High standards say I want to do this well. Harshness says you're not good enough until you do. That second voice, the one that never lets you rest, never lets you celebrate, never lets you be okay for just one moment, that isn't motivation. It's a nervous system that learned a long time ago that softness wasn't safe, that you had to stay vigilant and keep pushing, or something would fall apart. It kept you going, and it cost you something too. What my coach modeled, without making a big thing of it, was that you can hold yourself with care and still do hard things. You can be honest about where you are without being mean about it. You can want more for yourself without fear where you are right now as a failure. That was genuinely new for me, and it took time to settle in. I'm not going to tell you I heard it once and everything shifted. That's not how it works. You learn gentleness the same way you learned harshness, through repetition, through practice, through small things, showing yourself what it looks like until your body starts to believe it aloud. Over time, I started to notice the difference in my body between the two. Harshness feels like bracing, like holding your breath, like waiting for something to go wrong. Kindness feels like a long exhale, like your shoulders dropping half an inch, like there's actually room to think. And from that place, from that exhale, I could actually see myself more clearly through the lens of everything I had survived and kept going through and done my best with, rather than everything I hadn't done. That changed things. And here's what I've come to understand. You cannot give from a place you don't have access to yourself. If kindness isn't something you extend inward, it becomes something you perform outward. Performing is tiring. Receiving is nourishing. So if you recognize that voice, the one that's never quite satisfied, always a step ahead with you with a critique, I'm not going to tell you just to be nicer to yourself. That advice doesn't land and you know it. What I will say is this: that voice learned to sound like that, which means it can learn something different. This isn't who you are. It's what you were taught, directly or indirectly, about what you had to do to be okay. And you can update that gently. So what does that actually look like day to day? Because I think this is where a lot of us get stuck. We hear, be kinder to yourself, and we genuinely want to. And then the day starts, and there are the people who needed things from us, and the emails, and the obligations. And by the time we get to ourselves, there's nothing left. And we tell ourselves we'll do better tomorrow. That's not a discipline problem. That's a sequencing problem. For most of my life, I operated from empty and topped myself up with whatever was left over, if there was anything left over. And I didn't even question it because that's what I had seen modeled. That's what being a good woman, a good mother, a good caregiver looked like. You give first, you rest when everyone else is settled. What I know now is that you can't sustain that. Your body keeps the score even when your mind is willing to push through. The irritability, the resentment that creeps in, the feeling of being invisible inside of your own life, those aren't character flaws. They are signals of your system telling you the cup is empty. Filling your cup first isn't selfish. It is the only way what you give to others actually means something, because it's coming from a full place rather than a depleted one. There's a warmth in that kind of giving that you simply cannot manufacture when you're running on fumes. So the question becomes, what fills you? And I mean actually fills you in your body, not just a list somewhere. This is worth sitting with because a lot of us have been so oriented outward for so long that we genuinely don't know the answer anymore. We know that we're supposed to say fresh air, a bath, a good book, and those things can be wonderful. And they work best when they're woven into the fabric of your day as something you actually protect rather than something you squeeze in when everything else is done. Awareness is where it starts. Before you can build anything new, you have to notice what's actually happening. So I want to offer you something small and concrete. Start checking in with yourself the way you would check in with someone you love. A few times a day, just pause. Put a hand on your chest, take a breath, and ask, how am I doing right now? What do I need right now? You don't have to fix anything in that moment. You're just practicing the act of turning inward. The act of turning toward yourself instead of past yourself. Most of us have never been taught to do this. We've always been taught to push through, to assess what others need, and to keep moving. Turning inward feels strange at first, even indulgent. That feeling is just the old pattern recognizing something unfamiliar. It fades. From that place of noticing, self-care starts to become less of a concept and more of a response. You check in, you notice, you're tired, and instead of overriding it, you ask, what might help you right now in this moment? A glass of water? 5 minutes outside? Sitting down before you have to rather than after? These aren't grand gestures, they're acts of loyalty to yourself. Repeated enough times that your nervous system begins to understand that you are somebody worth caring for. And that is the thing that changes the inner voice. You don't argue the harsh voice into submission. You don't positive think your way past it. You build evidence through your own actions that a different way is possible. Every time you pause instead of push through, every time you choose rest without guilt and put your own needs on top of the list rather than the bottom, you are showing your nervous system something new. You are teaching it slowly and steadily that you're safe to take care of. That's what self-love actually is in practice. It's less of a feeling and more of a series of small decisions made in your own favor. Even when it's inconvenient, especially then. It doesn't have to look dramatic. A morning that belongs to you before the day asks anything of you. A meal you actually sit down to eat. a conversation you don't rush. Permission to feel what you feel without immediately managing it or minimizing it. Over time, these things compound. The voice gets more quiet, the bracing in your body fades. You start to notice that you can be present with the people you love in a way that wasn't available when you were running on empty, because you're not secretly counting what it's costing you. You're giving from something real. Take a breath. Put your hand on your heart if this feels right. You've been doing the best you could with what you had. That deserves some kindness today and tomorrow and the day after that. I'll see you in the next video.